For years, Clash Royale players have been calling certain cards no skill. Whether it's the Mega Knight, the Royal Recruits, the Hog, or the Xbow, every troop in the game has its fair share of no skill accusations by certain players. But have you ever stopped and wondered why? What's the difference between a Mega Knight and a P.E.K.K.A? And why is the Mega Knight no skill, but the P.E.K.K.A isn't? And what's wrong with the Hog Rider? It seems like every person has his own list of no skill cards, which if you put them all together, makes basically every single card in the game a no skill card. But what does no skill actually mean? And what makes a card a no skill? The surface level definition is the following. No skill card is the one that breaks the fundamental balance of effort and reward. It takes less thought, less planning, less precision, but still gives more value. Now let's break that down. Clash Royale at its core is a game about fair trades and strategy, at least before the Evo Hero Champion Fiesta. But in a nutshell, both players have 8 cards, both players have 10 elixir, and both players are trying to outsmart and outplay the other. The whole system is built on the invisible balance scale. If you make a smarter move, if you time it right, place it right, and predict correctly, you're supposed to come out ahead. That's the deal. If you invest 5 elixir into a push, I defend it clean for 3, I win that trade. If you try to punch me at the bridge, I read it and kite your unit, I win that trade. That's the core mechanic and that's the fun. It rewards skillful decision and not just card strength. But the second a card shows up that ignores that balance, a card that gives more value than the effort it asks, the scale tips. Suddenly, you're not losing because you made a mistake, you're losing because someone dropped a 7 elixir card that spawns 6 troops on the bridge that overwhelms both lanes, and your counter was 1 card too deep in cycle. And now, you're spending all your elixir trying to defend and somehow still take damage. As you can see in this example, even though Jinxie's opponent did a very bad play placing recruits in the back, allowing the bandit to lock on tower, he eventually took the whole tower with the same push, using the recruits and the hogs, turning a bad play into a tower down just from playing recruits and hogs, without even being punished for his bad play.
Isn't that funny, bro? This guy like does the worst thing ever and then immediately takes my tower.
Now there are 5 main aspects that are attached to the no skill label. The first being low risk, high reward. This is when a card lets you make a dumb, desperate, or downright lazy play that has absolutely zero risk of turning on you and you get rewarded with high value. You didn't outplay your opponent, you didn't predict anything, you just placed a card that takes no skill and it rewarded you with extreme high value. Take the Mega Knight for example. Let's say your opponent has an elixir advantage, he just split a push and you have zero plan. You panic and you slam Mega Knight in the middle. No good placement or smart kiting and somehow you're fine. He wipes the swarm, he jumps on something, he tanks a few shots and continues to the tower with half his health. This is low risk, high reward in action. You didn't risk good placement or risk a smart play. You just placed it on a random tile in the middle and it gave you instant high value on defense and you have a counter push. Or take the Royal Giant. You place him at the bridge with zero support into a fully healthy Valkyrie, Knight and a few golems in there as well. He should get melted, but nope. He gets 2 shots, 3 shots, maybe even 4. That's a whole lot of damage for an unsupported push where you basically just place a card and it did its thing. Low risk, high reward isn't just about strength. It's about how often you get away with bad decisions. The second trait of a no skill card is guaranteed value. And this is where a lot of the rage comes from. Because there's something deeply frustrating about playing perfectly, predicting the placement and reacting instantly, only to barely stop a card from getting value. Or worse, still end up losing the trade. Guaranteed value is when a card just works, not because you played it smart, but because it's built to work no matter how you use it. Take the Royal Recruits. You can drop them into the worst position possible, late, into a Valkyrie, into almost any push, and they will still stall just long enough to defend something. You didn't gain an advantage, you didn't outplay, but you didn't really lose either. You always buy time and get value. Same applies to the Firecracker. No matter how you play it, her shrapnels will still chip and splash everything in front of it. This is guaranteed value. Same thing with the Royal Hogs. You split them and they go in opposite lanes, and unless your opponent has exactly the right defense in cycle like Bomb Tower or Valkyrie, you're guaranteed to chip away something from the tower, even one little nibble. And if they do have the counter, well, you just pulled out one of their best defensive tools, and now you're ready to punish with the next card. Guaranteed value cards don't ask for setup, they don't ask for a thought, they just hand you a positive trade or force out elixir, even when the play was mid at best. And this is when players stop blaming themselves and start blaming the card itself. The third trait of a no skill card is when it requires a very specific or very expensive response. And I don't mean hard to counter, I mean you must have this exact one thing in cycle or you're just screwed. People label the xbow as a no skill. You just place it and it starts shooting at a fast rate. And if you don't have the exact right card to counter it in your hand or even your whole deck, well, you just lost before the game even started. Some cards need specific counters to overcome them, and this removes every strategy involved. If you don't have that card, you simply lost and can't do anything about it. If your opponent plays Royal Giant and you don't have a building or a high DPS unit and cycle, you're either losing your tower or spamming everything you have just to trade evenly, and they will most definitely take half your tower if not more. This is not outplaying, that's just playing a card that requires a specific response. If your opponent plays xbow, you have to respond before it locks and you have to have a tank immediately. And if you don't, well, you just lost a tower to a single building card that your opponent probably placed without even thinking. The Hog Rider needs a building or a swarm to be countered with a positive trade. Anything else will either give you an elixir advantage or get you a few hits on the tower. These cards require specific responses, which is why this trait is very important in a no-skill card. The fourth trait is little to no placement requirement. This is when where you drop the card doesn't really matter. You just drag and drop and let the card do all the work. Placement is supposed to be a big part of Clash Royale. One tile too high, too late, too close, and your defense collapses. That's why it's satisfying when you kite a P.E.K.K.A perfectly across the arena with a single 1 Elixir Skeletons card. But then, there are cards like the Royal Recruits. Place them literally anywhere in your half of the arena, and 7 beefy troops appear across both lanes, and your opponent now has to defend perfectly. There is no wrong placement or timing. Just place them anywhere, anytime, and your opponent now has to deal with 2 separate lanes of shielded recruits, and if you combine that with the Royal Hogs, it's over. If you compare the Firecracker with the Magic Archer, for example, there's a big difference. The Firecracker requires no smart placement or skill. Just place it and it will chip away everything in front of it, even the tower. As opposed to the Magic Archer, where even one tile is the difference between the arrows hitting the tower at the same time and giving you maximum value, or missing and being useless, which is why many people prefer the Firecracker. It's just easier. Or let's go back to the Mega Knight again. You could drop him dead center, one tile off, late, early, even on your own tower, and 9 times out of 10, he will still get value. And the final trait of a no-skill card is works on autopilot and one repeated plan. Now this one's a little different. It's less about mechanics and more about mentality. Because technically, every card in Clash Royale is automated. They all move and attack on their own, but some cards take that to the next level. These are the ones that only have one job, and that job gets repeated over and over and over again until it finally cracks something. There is no adaptation, no variation or skilled strategy. You just do the thing and hope it works this time. Cards like Goblin Barrel, Miner, or Elixir Golem have these traits. Take the barrel for example. You throw it, your opponent logs, you throw it again, they log again. Eventually, they cycle late, they will misplace or panic, and you're up 500 damage. Elixir Golem is the same as well. Just drop him with the healer behind 3 or 4 times in a game, and you will almost always get some damage, if not overwhelm your opponent and 3-crown them. There is no other strategy or smart adaptation. Whatever your opponent does, you have no choice but to keep doing the same play until something changes. This takes no skill to do. You just do it multiple times until it works. These 5 traits make up the core of what makes a card no skill. Now the cards that are labeled the most no skill are the Royal Recruits, the Royal Hogs, Royal Giant, Elixir Golem, Hog Rider, Wall Breakers, Miner, Sparky, and of course the Mega Knight. But if you dig deeper, there's something more to it than just calling a card no skill. Sure, Miner can feel like Autopilot. Royal Giant can give you damage even when played alone. Goblin Barrel will get value just by being cycled fast enough. And each one of those cards have all the 5 traits that make it no skill. But does that make every win condition a no skill? The 5 traits we just broke down aren't exclusive to a handful of cards. They are not this checklist that only the Mega Knight or the Royal Recruits are guilty of. In the right matchup and the right time, any win condition in the game can hit all 5. Not because the card is poorly designed, but because Clash Royale is a game built on exploiting moments of advantage. That's what every deck, every win condition, and every player is trying to do. This brings us to the real point. The idea of a card being no skill is often just a reaction to a bad matchup, not a balanced evaluation of the card itself. Let's say you see your opponent drop a Sparky in the back, but you have an Electro Wizard in hand. You will cheer and enjoy resetting that Sparky to death. You know you've got the tool to shut her down, and the whole interaction feels skill-based and fair. Suddenly, the Sparky isn't no skill. Now take away that E-Wiz or give yourself a deck with no reliable reset. Suddenly, Sparky isn't a fair fight and it obliterates everything one hit at a time. If you mess up just once, your tower's gone. This is when players will hit Reddit and start writing essays about how Sparky needs to be deleted. Same thing with the Royal Recruits. If you have Wizard in hand or a solid splash unit, watching 7 recruits walk into your splash zone is almost funny. But if all you've got is archers and a snowball, you're now forced to spend double the elixir just to survive the push. And even then, you will probably take chip damage. And it's in that moment where the card feels no skill. Not because the recruits changed, but because you were unprepared. So what's the deal here? Is no skill even a real thing? Well, kind of. There are cards that require less precision, less thought, and less skill to play, but these cards exist for a reason. They are not design flaws, they are win conditions, and that's why they are labeled as win condition. They are meant to be easy to use and do their job to give you the win when you catch your opponent in a bad matchup. And just because a card is easy to use doesn't mean it's easy to win with. It all depends on what you're facing. So yeah, some cards will feel unfair, some matchups will feel one-sided, but that doesn't make the card broken, and it definitely doesn't make it no skill. Most of the time, it just means you didn't have the right tools, and it sucked. Well, except for Mega Knight, I don't have a deep reasoning towards it. It literally is no skill. Now let me know what you think. Is there really such a thing as a no skill card? Which ones frustrate you the most? Thank you for watching, and as always, don't forget to subscribe.